Hello, everybody. On this week's episode, we have got no other than Steve Gois of Precision Carpet and Tile. And he has been a client of ours now for about 8 years, since about 2018. He signed up right when we started. So we've been working together for a long time, getting on for almost a decade now. Can you believe it? And Steve's an amazing guy. He started Precision some years ago, I believe. And he's going to share his story today. He's going to tell you about his journey in starting his carpet cleaning business, the trials and tribulations and everything in between, and possibly even some great actionable advice as well as we go through his journey together. So strap yourself in, get yourself comfortable. This is Steve Gois of Precision Carpet, Tile and Upholstery Inc. And welcome to the show, Steve. Thank you very much for joining us.
Hey, John. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
No worries at all. So welcome to the channel. Let's start at the very, very beginning. What actually made you want to start a carpet cleaning business? Tell me your origin story, how many years ago it was. Tell us how you came to be the owner of a carpet cleaning business.
Well, it actually all started on the commercial janitorial side of things.
Okay.
I started off as a commercial janitor. I started a small little company. I actually worked this about 30 years ago now. I worked at a car dealership in the service department. And I started doing commercial janitorial. I had a friend of mine that actually had moved to this area, and he had a little company. And then after about 6 months, he didn't like it here, but he had a few accounts. And he said, listen, I have these accounts with these people, and I hate to just leave them high and dry. Would you mind taking them over until they end? And I said, sure, why not? Extra money, I'll do it. And I took over the accounts. And then it just slowly started to grow. And then the carpet cleaning side of the business became, a lot of these commercial accounts, they started saying, hey, do you clean carpets? And of course, I didn't want to tell them no. So naturally, I said, well, yes, I clean carpets. And I went out to a local supplier here, and he let me borrow a piece of equipment, a portable unit. We're talking over 30 years ago now. And I went in and I did the first, it was a bank, as a matter of fact. I went in and cleaned the carpets at this bank. And then they were really pleased.
That was the first job. That was the first job, Steve.
My first job was a bank. Yes, it was a bank. It was a bank that normally should have taken, maybe an hour. It took close to 5 to get it cleaned. But we got the job done, and then the bank was happy. And then it was another bank that they owned that they wanted us to do. And then it kind of started to roll, and then I realized, hey, wait a minute, I really need to get some training if I'm going to be doing this. I need to find out, how to do it properly. I mean, the basic instruction that I received was great, but I know there's more to it. Mm-hmm. So then at that point, I actually discovered where there was an IICRC class taking place, and I took my vacation from the dealership. I took a week off, and I went to that class and spent the entire week there, the 10 hours a day, the entire week to actually learn how to properly clean the carpets and how to do it right. And then, it just rolls from there. And then at that point, I went ahead and I bought my first, used carpet, mount my carpet cleaning truck with a propane. It had a kerosene heater in it. So we'd have to go fill up kerosene to do it. And it was me and my dad, God rest his soul, who came on board to help me. And I would literally clean carpets on my lunch break. I would clean carpets Saturdays and Sundays, along with the commercial janitorial. We still continued to do that. And then gradually the commercial, the people that were working at these facilities would be like, well, can you do my house? And then that's how the residential started. And then the rest is history. I mean, and then it just, we're talking 30 years. It just grew and grew from that point on.
What was the biggest challenge you had when you were trying to get the business off the ground? Was it just the matter of like learning the skills and doing that course was like the biggest thing that you had to do? Or were there other roadblocks that were getting in your way? Like, what was the hardest thing?
Learning the course was obviously, discovering the course, discovering how to, where to find the course. Obviously, the internet was relatively new 30 years ago. So, you run that dial up trying to find things. I'd say gaining new business was probably our hardest challenge back then. Learning, how to, I remember we had a publication here at the time that was called the Penny Saver. And it was, its name speaks volumes, penny saver. So, people looking in that magazine are looking to save a penny. So
Yeah.
naturally, the clients that you're getting from that magazine are lower end. I mean, they're looking
Yeah.
for cheap, 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 and just learning the process and how it worked and what to do, and then continuing education. Continuing to annually go to classes and learn new techniques. Like we were one of the first companies, if not the first company in this area of Florida to do tile and grout cleaning.
Right.
Nobody was doing
Wow.
tile and grout cleaning when they came out with the geckos and then the high pressure machines. We were one of the first ones to offer that service here. So it was just evolving and growing. But the biggest challenge in the beginning, obviously, was getting the customers. And keep in mind, I worked a full time job, so finding that balance to be able to, eventually the goal was to eventually build a company to where I could leave the full time job and make this my career, and which is
That brings me on to my next question perfectly, actually. Like, so what, from the time from starting it to actually quitting your job and doing it full time, how long did it take to get to that point?
It took me about 10 years.
10 years. Okay. Wow.
It took 10, and I probably could have quit at the 5 year mark and done the business full time. But I had been so invested there, and I had such a huge following, there, and I earned such a good living there that it was hard to walk away and say, okay, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. Until eventually, it just was to the point where make a decision. You got once the carpet cleaning and the janitorial was making equal to what I was making at the job or surpassing it, because now at that point you're used to those double incomes. And then it was like, okay, it's time. If I can do all of this part time and grow to this point, what could I potentially do if I left and focused all of my attention to precision? And that's how it happened.
Absolutely. And it just goes to show as well, like Rome wasn't built in a day. Building a business, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And there's so many people out there that are just trying to make $1 million quickly overnight, and so many get rich quick schemes, and so many coaches and consultants, and you see them advertising on Facebook and this and that. But the reality of the situation, this is what I always tell people. If you look at some of the most successful multi-billionaires on the planet, you look, for example, at Elon Musk, it took him 10 plus years to successfully launch a rocket into space. A decade, if not more, it might even be more than that. So for 10 years, he was investing millions of dollars, and the rocket would go up and come crashing straight back down again. But he kept getting back on the horse. He didn't give up. It took him a decade to get there. I was reading about Jeff Bezos, right? He started Amazon, I think, in like 1994. It wasn't until it took them 20 years before they were even a profitable business. Imagine being in the red for 2 decades.
Years. I know.
You know what I mean? He was building all this infrastructure, the warehouses, the fulfillment centers. So obviously, because his business was front loaded with all of that cost to set this thing up, he wasn't making any profit whilst he was building this thing out. And that took a long time, but he kept going. He didn't give up. And so for all these people that are like, I tried starting a business and I'm struggling, so I'm going to give up after 3 months, or I tried getting some leads from a carpet cleaning company, or I'm starting this or that business, and you've been doing it a year and it's not working. You're just getting started, man. You
got to get through it. You got to get through the first 5 years. I mean, even if that means doing it the way I was doing, doing it on a part-time / full-time mode while having a job to continue to bring in the income. I was a young guy then. I was in my early 20s. I had gotten married. I was starting a family. I had my first child. So, I mean, I had a family that I had to support that relied on me. So I couldn't just, I had to continue to build it and just work it. And that problem is that in today's society, a lot of people don't want to work. They don't want to work it. They don't want to put in the hours. They don't want to do, for example, when I got to that dealership at 6:30 in the morning, I left at 6 o'clock at night. I came home. I had a bite to eat. I was back out until 3 o'clock in the morning. I would bring my lunch at work, and at 12 noon, I would jump on that carpet cleaning van, and I would go over and clean a condo, eating the sandwiches in between the drive back and forth to work, changing my shirt in between the drive back and forth to work. But that's what it took. I mean, to reach that ultimate goal, I mean, that's what it took on my end. And then you're going to
Absolutely.
get, then you got to get through the humps. You know, I mentioned that very first unit that I purchased. You know, here we are a year in. You know, with that unit that I used with the kerosene, and you know, here we are on a Saturday. I've got that Saturday booked out the entire day, full of jobs, and we get out that first job in the morning, and next thing you know, the machine's on fire. So you know, the smoke billowing out of the van, and it was just. So now you kind of get another unit, and it's just things you just can't go. Oh my God, I'm going to quit now because this happened. Like,
Absolutely.
figure out a
Absolutely.
way to get over that challenge and do it. And that's what
Absolutely.
we
I
did.
was exactly the same as you. When I started this company, you know, I was in the very beginning, before I knew you, had a full-time job. I was working in an office, and I'd come home from work, and I'd literally be on the laptop, on the computer, having Zoom meetings, figuring stuff out, making a website, sorting all this stuff out after hours. I used to get the bus to work every morning. It was an hour journey on the bus. I'd have my headphones on. I'd be watching YouTube videos. I'd be learning things, teaching myself things. I'd be doing the same on my lunch break. I'd be doing my same on the bus on the way home. And then once I did get home, I'd be working again till 10, 11, 12, 1 in the morning, just trying to get this thing off the ground. And it took me a few years, just like yourself. And I got myself into that position where, you know, I was able to replace my income that I had in my job with my business, and I was able to walk away comfortably because, just like you, I was in my 30s, I think. So, you know, I had responsibilities and financial responsibilities. It wasn't that simple. So if anybody like watching this, like, honestly, it's a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. It requires massive amounts of hard work, huge amounts of tenacity. You're going to fail loads of times. The times you're going to want to put your head through a window and smash it. And you just got to keep going, keep getting back on the horse, and eventually, and you know, you'll crack that code and you'll start to see success. But it takes years of hard work, and that's where so many people fail. That's where so many people struggle. They underestimate the value, the amount of effort that's required, and the amount of time these things take. And that's why you see people like Bezos and whatnot being so successful, because they fully understood that from the start. Like they when they were starting companies like Amazon, they knew this wasn't going to be, you know, get rich in a year or 2 years. This was going to be a 10, 20, 30, 40 year program to get to where they wanted to be. And that guy had massive challenges along the way. I remember when the Amazon Kindle came out and all the publishing houses started freaking out. Oh my God, you're destroying the book industry. Nobody's going to buy books anymore when they can get them on Amazon digitally for like $2 a pop. Like, oh my, and the guy was sued like crazy, trying to put him out of business, all kinds of mad stuff. I read a biography about it. It was insane. But he just kept going. He just did not stop. And here he is today, one of the most successful people on this earth. So yeah, I think it's about, sorry?
There's a model that I always lived by, that I always, you know, kept in the back of my mind, and that was, if business was easy, everybody would own one.
Absolutely. That's a great analogy. The next question I've got to ask you, Steve, is a question that I always enjoy asking everybody, not only that comes on the YouTube channel, but everybody that we work with in general, because it's always entertaining to hear your answer. And so this is the question. Every carpet cleaner that I've ever worked with has always got some amazing, crazy, scary, sensational, bizarre, random, weird, funny story from one of the carpet cleaning or one of the commercial cleaning, whatever it is, from one of the jobs that they've done. I know I've had people tell me that they were, you know, a woman tried to seduce them. Various, shall we say, toys have been found in various occasions. The guy that was on the podcast last, he was hired to clean an S&M dungeon up in someone's basement, and he had a great story to tell about that. I've got my own personal story about one of the early guys that we worked with, and he was hired to basically, without his knowledge, to conceal a murder that a woman had just done, killed her husband and done a runner. And so we were involved in that and providing evidence to the police and stuff, because we had the phone conversations recorded. So over the years, over the decade or so that I've been doing this, I have heard some unbelievable stories. So I just wanted to ask you, Steve, what's the most craziest story you've got since you've been in this game?
God, there's so many. I think just about every single one that you mentioned, we've had happen to us here, over the years. We've had it from, people offering us drugs as payments. You know, would you like would you like cash or weed? No, I'll take the cash, thank you. We had a situation one time where I was scheduled to go out to this woman's house at like 4 in the afternoon. I remember we lived in Florida, so this is in the middle of July or August, and it was, you know, 200 degrees, or at least that's what it felt like outside. And we were scheduled to go home at 4 in the afternoon, but one of my jobs in the morning at around 10 had rescheduled for another day. So I decided, you know what, I'm not around the corner from her. Let me try calling her, see if I can get out for home. And I called, and there was no answer. But I said, you know what, I'm going to go knock on the door anyway. Let me just go to her house. Worst case scenario, she's going to say she's not going to be late for me until 4 o'clock. Or she's not even home, at which point I'll just go get a bite to eat for lunch. Not a big deal. So I we get over to the house, we pull in the driveway, and when I say we, my dad, God rest his soul, was helping me back then, and we pull into the driveway, and I jump out to go to the front door, and I'm standing at the front door, and I can faintly hear somebody going, "Help! Help! Somebody help me!
Yeah.
Somebody help me!" And I go and I look, and I look at a fence, and I look over the fence, and there's the woman, an elderly woman. She had fallen on a little concrete pad trying to dry some clothes, and
All
she had
right.
broken her hip. And here she is
Shit.
in the 100-degree weather. Now, if I waited until 4 o'clock to get to her, she probably wouldn't have made it. I mean, God only knows. And then I remember getting to her, and I called 911 and the whole 9 yards. And her whole concern the entire time was, "Can you still clean my carpets?" And that's all she was worried about, was getting her carpets clean. But that was just, well, not necessarily a funny story. That was one of those ones where you just say, talk about luck, the luck of the draw for that poor woman. But the
Absolutely.
funny
You were
part is
there at the right
she wheeled
time.
into the rescue, and all she kept saying was, "Can you still please clean my carpets? It's okay. You can go clean my carpets."
Crazy. Absolutely. Yeah. Like, especially, with you guys being in a game for a while, since you were in your 20s or whatever, when your dad was helping you, I'm sure over the years you've seen some stuff,
we,
man.
we've seen it all. When we had this one particular day. Again, we were booked solid the whole day, and it just seemed that every job we had was just terrible. I mean, there wasn't a single job it was just terrible. It was all low end jobs. It was terrible. And finally, the last job of the day, we pull into this beautiful, we're talking $1 million subdivision. It's just gorgeous. And this is back in the early 2000s. And my father, God rest his soul, he looks at me and he goes, "Finally, a nice home. Thank you, Lord." We pull into this driveway, and this home is just beautiful, 2-story, just absolutely gorgeous. And ringing the doorbell, and the woman comes to the door, and she opens the door, and the smell was just knock you on your feet. She was a hoarder, just like you see on television. You
The
couldn't even.
hoarder.
She was a hoarder. You couldn't even see the carpet. You couldn't.
Wow.
I couldn't clean the carpet. You couldn't see the carpet. There was just so much. She had trash piled to the ceiling, and
My
these ceilings were like 12 foot high.
God.
And I remember my father just saying, "God, not even the good-looking houses today. It doesn't even matter. We can't catch a break."
So you couldn't clean, I guess. You just
I
couldn't do
couldn't
it,
clean the
right?
carpet. I couldn't see the carpet. It was just so bad.
Unbelievable, man.
It
That's
was
absolute.
from the exterior of the home, you would have never known it. It was in this amazing subdivision, this
Absolute.
beautiful facade, and then you open the door, and it was just, wow. Even on we just couldn't catch a break that day. But that was again the early trials and tribulations when starting out. So
Yeah, absolutely. On to that point, actually, what would you say was the biggest mistake that you made when you were starting out that you see other carpet cleaning businesses that are starting up today they're also making that same mistake?
that's a great question. I'm gonna have to say probably the pricing. The advertising, the ridiculously low pricing, the having to advertise. Back in the day, as I said, the penny saver, which was advertising in low end publications. While it's a mistake, I don't. That's such a tough question, because there's just, yeah, I would say pricing. Try falling into that, that trap of let me be really cheap to get the business, as opposed to, staying firm to what you should charge and staying in line with everyone else. And then, of course, especially when quality needs to be, people are going to remember the quality and the performance well after they've forgotten the price. So I think that was probably one of the
Getting
earlier
the
mistakes.
pricing right, basically. Getting the pricing correct, basically.
Correct. Getting the pricing, correct to where you're giving them exactly what they're paying for. You should be doing the job properly from start to finish, as opposed to you're going in. I was going in back in the day, and the pricing was ridiculously low, but yet I was performing the job of the people that were pricing correctly. You understand? I was going in and I was doing everything by the book. I was certified. I was raking the carpets and the pre-spraying and the drying and the whole 9 yards, but yet charging for the for an in and out job, which but again, those are things you learn. You learn as you go along.
Learn as you go along. Absolutely, absolutely. So, anybody watching this, do your research. If you're just starting out, do your research. Figure out what other carpet cleaners are charging in your area, and price yourself appropriately. Don't be the cheapest. Don't be the most expensive. Find a nice middle ground, I reckon. And and for the value that you provide as well, factor that in. And like Steve is just saying, he was going the whole 9 yards. So if you are too, then you need to price your business accordingly. So
And
that's
remember that they're going to remember the quality well after they forget the price, and that's the
absolutely,
case. Do the job well.
absolutely. And that's the thing as well, especially in this industry, if you do the job well, and it's the kind of family that's maybe got pets and they're going to need to, for you to come out regularly. If you've done a good job, they're going to keep using you. So like, give them the best experience possible, give them an amazing carpet cleaning experience, give them the whole 9 yards, and you'll have a customer for life potentially.
Yeah, I mean, I have customers. If you go on my customer list, I have customers that have been using us since I started, since 1998, 99, 2000. They're
There
still
you
on
go.
our list today, and we still clean their carpets. It's
Absolutely.
and sometimes it's now their kids. The parents have passed away, and we've been doing their kids. Their adult children now who do their homes. I had a customer yesterday reach out. As a matter of fact, she needed some receipts for warranty. She had warranty on her carpet, and we've been cleaning her carpets since 2010. I mean, here we are,
Wow.
16 years later, twice a year since 2010. She used nobody but us. So,
There
and
you
going
go.
through, and she's changed her carpets a couple of times, and we've cleaned them every single time. So, give them what they're paying for.
Absolutely, 100%. Now let's move on and talk about the marketing and the advertising aspect of the business. Before we get into like working with us, we'll come to that in a minute. But prior to working with us, I imagine there must have come a point where you realized I need to start doing something here, especially since you went full time or whatever, or maybe you had started with the marketing whilst you were still working in the car showroom. But tell us about like the before you worked with us in terms of like marketing, like what you were doing, and what did all that look like?
Well, we were doing we did a monthly newsletter every
Okay.
month. We sent to every customer a monthly newsletter. Obviously, before the internet and email became, what it is today, we did a lot of it by mail. We actually mailed out a monthly newsletter that I would print out at home in the office. Once we got an office, we would print out that monthly newsletter, and that monthly newsletter would have a recipe and some tips on the carpet cleaning, and then we always a little special, and if, the holidays there'd be something involved with the holidays, you know just a one bush type thing, and we would mail that out. We would do the publications, the local magazines. We'd advertise there. Obviously the internet wasn't what it is today, so that wasn't really you know a viable thing. And then, of course, the big one was, and we did a lot of, we had a referral, which we still do to this day. We have a referral program, which was a big part of you know, our advertising when we moved the homes was that referral, that word of mouth, getting that customer to refer you to their friends or their neighbors. I would actually go, I had door hangers made up. So when I was cleaning carpet, I would actually go to the neighbor and just hang that door hanger on the neighbor, and the door hanger said something to the effect of, yeah, I just cleaned your neighbor's carpet, so your neighbor's carpets look beautiful. How about we make yours look beautiful? That type of thing. and we'd hang the door hanger on on a couple of doors next to that house, and we didn't want the neighborhoods doing that because we didn't want to solicit like that. But we would, if we were in a neighborhood and we would do a house, we would hang, and it just started to grow. The customers just started, and gradually, slowly but surely, it started to grow. And then, of course, once the internet came on, the Facebooks and the Instagrams, they came on board, and naturally we gravitated towards advertising and running ads on those to the point where I didn't come you. So that's how
There we
that.
go. Right. So that's sounds like you're doing all the stuff that you should have been doing back then, pre-internet. And a lot of this stuff is still, there's still some relevancy to it today. If you're prepared to make the effort. And so that's awesome that you were doing that, I think. And again, it's just about doing the hard work, going out into these communities, sticking these hangers on the doors, printing out these newsletters. Quite often, it's just about doing the hard work, right? You just got to do the hard work, whether that's calling 20,000 businesses, whether that's sticking flyers through doors, like whatever you've got to do. That's really the game. And
I actually invested in a cold call machine, which was basically a computer that randomly dialed numbers. That was quite the adventure. And then what would happen is it would call and it would basically introduce us, and it was kind of like a telemarketing, but it was telemarketing, but it was kind of an electronic thing. And then if they wanted to book an appointment with you or hear more, they would press one and it would come into our office. And of course, you probably, and every 100, if you got one appointment out of it, hey, it was one. But you got a lot of, don't call me again, we're going to kill you, you got my number, that type of thing. So, but we actually did that for a while. We had that running. That would run from, say, 4 in the afternoon to, say, 7 at night, 6 at night before dinner, and we would just run that all night long. That's how we did back in the day. I mean, it was, I invested in it, and I figured, let's do it, and it paid off to a certain extent. I mean, we did get customers. You just had to weed through the people that wanted to kill you because you were calling them at 5:30 in the afternoon and they didn't want to be called. But that was one of these things that we did way back in the day.
Absolutely. I've never heard of such a system, to be honest with you, but I mean,
yeah,
it sounds
ahead of its time back in the day. Yeah.
Wow, crazy, man. Wow. Right. So let's talk a little bit now then about working with us. Obviously, we've changed names since then. We were AGB recently. In the last couple of years, we rebranded to Carpet Boost AI just to have a name that resonates with the industry that we serve mainly. But aside from that, we're effectively the same company. So yeah, just talk us through, how that's been for you working with us and, how that's had an impact on your business.
Well, it's been phenomenal. It was hands down, and I'm not saying this because I'm here talking to you. I mean, I've been with you since the early inception of your company. And, I'll be honest with you. I took a gamble. I saw your video and, and of course, the time wasn't, it is what it is. And I took this huge step, and I remember I consult with my wife, who's been by my side for 33 years, and I normally consult with her. She handles a lot of the finances, and in this case, I said, I'm not going to consult with it. If she's going to say no way, forget it when I'm doing this. So I'm going to give this a whirl. We've got nothing to lose. We've lost more in the last 20 something years than what we're going to lose here. Let's give this guy a shot. If what he's really saying is legit and sounded spot on, I said, let's do it. And you literally have become just about 98% of all of my advertising. I don't really do anything else but you. And just so you know, I know you changed the name to Carpet Boost, but to me, it's still AGB and will always be. That's what you asked. And our business just, it was amazing. I can't say enough good things. And that's where we went. And so much so that I'm with you still to this day. So we just, and yes, and it does have, it does fluctuate from time to time. It's not like it's,
cool.
As anything else, but it's been phenomenal. I mean, you took me from 1 truck to 3 trucks. So at one point we had 3 trucks. I have scaled back to 2 again, but that was on my end. But we had, I went from literally 1 truck, a 1 truck operation to a 3 truck operation in a matter of a year.
There you
just
go. Amazing.
your ads. So
Absolutely. That's what gets me out of bed every morning. A lot of people don't realize this. Unfortunately, the advertising world, and not just in the carpet cleaning industry, but in general, it gets a bit of a bad rap. There's a lot of cowboys out there, shall we say, that don't really know what they're doing. And there's a lot of people that have, paid some dude in India or something $5 on Fiverr and they haven't got results, and it leaves a bad taste in people's mouths. And there are some people out there that don't really care. They just want to take people's money and then that's that. But for me personally, to know that I've had an impact on someone's life and their business with a system that I created, that gives me the greatest sense of achievement and accomplishment that I could ever wish for. It feels so amazing to know that you've made a difference in someone's life, and so for me to, hear these stories and jump on calls with you, 8 years down the line, still high-fiving it really means the world to me. So thanks a lot for your kind words as well. I really appreciate that. I do have a quick question though. How much trouble did you get into with the missus at the time?
It's funny because when she discovered, she was upset, and all of a sudden, when the messages started rolling in and she couldn't keep up with the scheduling, she went from being upset to saying, "Oh my God, this is amazing." So it turned really quick. The messages started flowing in pretty quickly. Next thing you know, she's like, "I think you made the right call on this one." And yeah, we turned her around real quick, to the point now where if she doesn't have or she's not seeing the volume of messages she feels she's become accustomed to, then I'm hearing, well, you need to reach out to John. It just seems a little slower. So, but
Absolutely.
yeah, that's while she was initially upset, it turned quick when she saw the results. So the
Amazing.
results spoke
Amazing.
for themselves, and I think a lot of these people out there, a lot of these cowboys, like you mentioned, they make their money and not where they're making their money is in selling you their quote unquote, this is how we do it, learn how to do it from us. Whereas your system had nothing to do with learn how to do anything from me. It was, we're going to provide you the leads, we're going to provide you the opportunity to sell these customers your service, as opposed to I'm going to sell you my class and I'm making my
Exactly.
money. Anybody that's paying $20 for my class, I'm not making my money
Absolutely.
providing you anything other than my class. Yeah, so that's what's
Absolutely. Amazing. So what's the future look like for you guys at Precision at the minute? Are you looking to
well.
grow back to 3 or 4 vans, scale it back and get smaller as time goes on? What's the plan moving forward?
Honestly, the plan moving forward is, the age is creeping up here. 30 years in, I think the plan going forward is to put it on the market. I think it's, I'm kind of breaking the news to you here. The plan here is to eventually, is to get it sold and moved on to someone else that is ready to continue to grow it and take it that next level again, move it from that 2 bands to that 5 bands, and just really run with it. I'm not ready to run with it anymore. I think I'm that, and that's kind of my next. I mean, as you know, I think I told you that I purchased what I was hoping would be my retirement business. So I have purchased the ice cream shop, which is where I'm currently stationed in the office here. So the business, the carpet cleaning business, along with janitorial, it pretty much runs itself at this point. I mean, we've got 30 years in. Of course, with your help in the ads, to make a big difference. But I think that's going to be my next step, is to walk away from this part of the business.
So I was just saying, as I was saying, kudos to you. You've had the business for 30 years, you've grown it, you've made a massive success. And, you had 3 vans at one point, you've got 2 now. It continues to be successful. This is what business is all about: starting it, growing it, scaling it, and then exiting it for a chunk of money. And then basically what happens is you call me up, me and you meet up in Hawaii, and we drink cocktails and wear Hawaiian shirts and eat ice
Listen,
cream.
from your lips to God's ears.
Awesome. Right. Last question, then we're all finished up. For anybody, what would you say is your number one piece of advice for people in the carpet or residential cleaning industry or commercial, whatever it is? what's your number one piece of advice, business advice, actionable advice for people watching this right now that they can listen to, take? It's going to make a difference.
Worry about yourself and your company only. Don't worry about what anyone else is doing. Focus 100% on what you're doing and how you're doing it.
Absolutely.
That would be, I think, my biggest. I've never focused on my competition, and we know in this business there's lots of it. I've never focused on it. I've never worried about it. Um, Obviously, pricing, you want to stay in line, but never focus or worry about what anyone else is doing. Focus 100% on what you're doing and keep the steady pace. That's the Rome wasn't built in a day, as you said. And if business was easy, everybody would own one. So you've got to put in the work and just stay focused. It will come over time. It just takes time. Okay, it doesn't
Absolutely.
happen overnight. It's not and you're not going to. This isn't a get rich quick type opportunity. You've got to, all your dreams are attainable if you work at them. You just focus
Absolutely.
on yourself. Focus on providing that customer the best service possible. And it will pay off in the end.
Absolutely. I did. There was somebody else that I was watching another video, somebody on YouTube recently, and they said pretty much exactly the same thing. And I completely stand by the same advice as well. And they said that simply, when it comes to your competition, don't focus on them at all. Focus on yourself and just keep showing up every day. And as long as you just keep doing that, focusing on yourself and just show up every day, eventually the likelihood is that you'll outlast all of your competition. Most people will give up. And as long as you just keep going, you'll be the last man standing at the end of the day. That's how you beat your competition. You just keep going. Don't worry about what they're doing, like you said, and just keep going. And if there's 10 other companies in the area, whatever that is, probably 50% of those will have given up within the first few years anyway. Just got to keep having that tenacity just to keep going, and you'll just outlast everybody in the end.
Just focus on yourself. Don't worry about what so and so's doing, and don't adjust yourself based on so and so. That don't fall into that trap of, well, they're doing 2 rooms for $5, so I'm going to do 2 rooms for $3. Just focus on yourself and building your.
Absolutely, 100%. That's amazing advice. And with that, I'd just like to say thank you so much, Steve, for coming on today, sharing your story and telling us about some of the experiences that you've had in this industry and providing some absolutely amazing advice, which I think is absolutely 100% true. And I think there's so many distractions. There's so much going on social media now and stuff. It's so easy to, be taken adrift by what other people are doing. So I think that advice is absolutely fantastic. Anybody that's watching this, don't forget to hit the old like and the subscribe button so that when the next guest is on, you get notified. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.